right, the last presentation we talked about evaluating expressions. This is going to be our second thing that we do with expressions, which is simplifying. And so this is going to be divided into two parts. In this first presentation on simplifying expressions, we're going to talk about combining like terms. Let's start off with some vocabulary. First thing we have is terms. This is the product. Remember, product means multiplication of numbers and or variables. Terms are separated by addition and subtraction. Inside the term, we have something called the coefficient. This is the number part of the term. And we also have like terms. These are terms that have the same variables raised to the same powers or exponents. Like terms, another way to think about it, is everything but the coefficient must be exactly the same. So let's go ahead and just look at some terms and determine if they are like or not. For example A, we have 5x and 3x. Are these like terms? Yes, we call these x terms. Notice that everything after the coefficients, our coefficients are 5 and 3. Everything after the coefficients is exactly the same. Okay, what about B? B, we have negative 2x and negative 2y. These are not like terms because one of them has an x and the other one has a y. Remember that our variables have to be exactly the same. Okay, example C, what about negative 8 and 4? Are these like terms? And the answer is yes. These are both, we call it constant terms. Both of them have no variables, and so they are considered like terms. Okay, what about negative 6y cubed and y cubed? These ones are like terms. They both are y cubed terms. Example E, 3x and 3x squared. These are not like terms because one of them is just an x, the other one is an x squared. Not only do your variables have to be the same, your exponents have to be the same. And since one term does not have a square, then they are not considered like terms. All right, and the last example, negative 8c and 4. These are not like terms either. One of them has a c and the other one is a constant term. All right, so now let's talk about combining like terms. Let's see what we're going to do with this. So in order to combine like terms, first you do need to identify which ones are like terms. From there, we're going to add or subtract the coefficients. And we want to keep the same variables with the same exponents. All right, let's go ahead and look at some examples. Let's see how this is going to work. Okay, for example A, we have 10b plus 4b plus 10b. So the first thing we want to do is we are going to add our coefficients. So I'm going to go ahead and just add the number parts. 10 plus 4 plus 10 equals 24. We keep the variable and we keep the exponent if there were any. And so our final answer is 24b. All right, if we look at example B, we have negative 7n minus n. So one of the first things I want to emphasize to you is that if there is no number in front, it is implied to be a 1. So this is technically negative 7n minus 1n. If we combine the numbers, negative 7 and negative 1 have same signs, so we are going to add and keep the sign, and we keep the variable. We end up with negative 8n. All right, example C. We have 3c minus 5c minus 4c. I'm going to go ahead and combine my negatives first. Negative 5c and negative 4c, we have same signs, so I'm going to add and keep the sign. Keep the variable, we get 3c minus 9c. These have different signs, so I'm going to subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. So we get negative 6c. All right, example D. We have negative 9xy plus xy. Again, remember that this is negative 9xy plus 1xy. If we combine our numbers, negative 9 plus 1, they have different signs, so we are going to subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number. This becomes negative 8, and I keep my xy. Final answer is negative 8xy. Okay, a couple more easy ones. Let's look at AB minus AB. If we do this, remember that anything minus itself is 0. That applies also for expressions when we talk about variables. AB minus AB is just 0. And last one, let's look at negative 4p squared minus 3p squared plus 8p squared. I'm going to start by combining my negatives. These have same signs, so I'm going to add and keep the sign. We get negative 7p squared plus 8p squared. And now if I add this, I get negative 7 plus 8. These have different signs, so I'm going to subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number, so I get 1p squared. Or you can also write that as p squared without the 1. Okay, let's try some where we have to identify like terms. Let's come up to example G. Example G, we have 3b squared plus 4d squared plus 7b squared. Now, one thing to remember is you are only allowed to combine like terms. If they do not have same variables with same exponents, they cannot be combined. So for instance here, what are my like terms? I can combine 3b squared and 7b squared. 3 plus 7 is 10. We keep the variable, we keep the exponent. And then now what do I do with the 4d squared? Well, I just keep it. And so our final answer is 10b squared plus 4d squared. Okay, let's look at example H. Example H, we have negative 6x plus 5 plus 6x plus 2. The first thing I notice is negative 6x and 6x, these cancel. They are opposites, and so we can go ahead and just cancel them. We're not going to have any x's in our final answer. And so what does that leave us to combine? We have 5 and 2 combined to give us 7. All right, let's look at 2y minus 7 minus y plus 7. Same thing on this one. The first thing I can do is negative 7 and positive 7 are going to cancel. That leaves me with 2y minus y. Remember that minus y is technically minus 1y, and so when we combine these, we get 1y or y. Okay, let's look at example J and see what we can do here. So what can we combine? I can combine negative 3x and 10x. Negative 3 plus 10, those have different signs, so I'm going to subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number, so we get 7x. And I can combine negative 5 and positive 12. Same thing, they have different signs. I'm going to subtract, keep the sign of the larger number, and we get 7. So my final answer is 7x plus 7. All right, last one. Let's look at 4a plus b minus 6a plus b. If we combine, I can combine 4a and minus 6a. We have different signs, so I'm going to subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number, so I get negative 2a. I can combine b and b. b plus b, remember this is 1b plus 1b is 2b. And that takes care of simplifying by combining like terms.